What's up, studs and studettes? Shout out to the ladies. Welcome to the 90K Q&A. Let's jump right into it. Question 20, seated cable chest press versus dumbbells. And I assume you mean the dumbbell flat bench press. Now, I haven't actually done the seated cable chest press. It looks biomechanically fine. You get a little bit of an arc because the resistance is coming not just straight down like gravity would with dumbbells, but there's a little bit of an arc to it, meaning that you actually do have some resistance in that contracted position. Whereas with dumbbells, you can sort of just chill here and there's nothing to contract against because gravity is going that way. I know that Sean Nalawani is a fan of the seated cable chest press. I think I've seen him do it a few times. He has a snapping triceps thing going on. He's actually getting surgery sometime in the next week or so. So hopefully that goes well and he is back to business. Wishing him a speedy recovery. Now, one thing to note is that even if the cables are on paper better, often the resistance is going to be limited just because a lot of cable stacks just don't go that heavy. So I could not really do this movement just because my gym is like not the best, and so I prefer to use dumbbells. All right, number 19, we have a question about creatine. How does creatine supplementation work? Surely, when ingested, creatine is broken down into the three amino acids, arginine, glycine, and methionine, meaning that consuming more common, larger proteins that contain these same three amino acids as well as other amino acids would produce the same effect. So I think you have maybe an overly optimistic view of the potential of the stomach and how it can actually break down stuff. You don't break down creatine, okay? It is about 100% or 99% or very close to 100% bioavailable. So it doesn't get broken down. You know, your stomach doesn't break down everything. Stomach acid is very powerful, but it isn't like a blast furnace or something, okay? So some foods don't even get digested. So there's actually a mushroom here in China called Mingtianjian, which means literally see you tomorrow. I won't explain beyond that, but it is not digested very well. All right, question number 18. Most of us know about the common themes of fitness and building muscle. What are some deep cuts you think you have discovered, even if you aren't fully confident in the answers or are still testing? Alternatively, what are some simple approaches that could benefit the average regular gym goer the most? So I'm a lot more careful in putting out content now than I used to be. I have a number of answers on Quora that I no longer believe, but they're out there. And even if I offered a retraction, some of these answers have been read hundreds of thousands of times, if not millions of times. And so once you put information out there, it's out there, okay? I think there was some scientific study that said that out of published research, the retractions were almost not viewed at all. So a lot of studies, they were debunked or not replicated or shown to be just bogus. You know, the journal offered a retraction, but no one saw the retraction. Like 5% of the people who saw the original one saw the retraction. So right now I'm quite careful in how I word things and the information that I put out. And if I'm like experimenting with something and I'm trying something out, I might allow quite a bit of time before I put out that information. And I think most people should start with moderation. They should start with the basics. They shouldn't do anything crazy or extreme. But past a few years of training, you might want to get a little bit more hardcore. Super high volume, super low volume, like super way, way beyond failure. Like I've done quadruple drop sets on RDLs. Would that be a blanket recommendation that I would make? Hell no. No way. Would I recommend doing German volume training on deadlifts? No. And so a lot of the stuff that I've done, I couldn't in good conscience recommend, but I have seen some progress from stuff that I would not recommend, if that makes sense. And a lot of this stuff, there's not going to be any evidence for or against it, or sometimes there's even evidence against it, but my own personal experience goes against that. So the evidence might say, oh, 60% of people didn't see results with this. This was better. Well, those are other people, right? And there's always going to be a range in terms of how different people respond. So I would encourage people, I mean, even if it's only 5% of people who saw results from this one thing versus 95% for the other, you might be in that 5%. So feel free to experiment, especially once you are past the beginner stage, and you might actually see better results. For example, sometimes I add in high intensity techniques, like an isometric hold at the end or something, and people will ask me why, or like, could you provide some evidence or like a study for this? I don't even do that anymore. Like, I took evidence-based out of my bio on Instagram because I kept getting those kind of questions and I just didn't want to deal with them, right? Like, sometimes it's enough to just say, this feels good, or I saw results from this, and just clarify saying, oh, this is my own experience and nothing else. All right, question 17. Do you think that dynamic finger flexion through a full range of motion exercises are better than wrist curls for forearm size? So I would say yes, but you can combine the two. So when I'm doing my wrist movements, it's not just this. I actually allow the bar or the dumbbell to float down into the fingers. And you can actually see it. Yeah, like this does something. This does something as well. And you can actually combine both to get a better stretch and a better contraction. All right, next question. Is there a difference in the type of muscle you'll build training strictly in the 1 to 5 rep range versus the 6 to 12? So there is the theory that there is sarcoplasmic versus myofibrillar hypertrophy. So myofibrillar is the actual contractile tissue. Sarcoplasm is the soup that it is sitting in. And the idea is that higher rep ranges would build that soup more in proportion compared to the actual fibers that rest in the soup. Trouble is, there's not a whole lot of evidence for this, and it seems to be more related to the total amount of work that you do. So if you do a whole bunch of sets of 5, that might be more sarcoplasm in theory compared to a few sets of 6. So it seems to be more about the total volume, and even then the difference doesn't seem to be great. This might be different for enhanced lifters. It does seem that maybe they focus more on the pump. Maybe these drugs do seem to work the sarcoplasm a little bit more. It does seem that enhanced lifters gain more size than strength in a lot of cases, and so that might be part of the reason why. All right, question 15. Thoughts on under 10 sets per muscle per week, thinking like a 3-day upper, lower, upper kind of split, busy university student kind of program. So I would say, yeah, it's definitely viable. Just make the sets count. Think about it in terms of just training stress. Okay, so you can do more volume and maybe not as close to failure, but if you're doing lower volume, you have to train closer to failure, maybe on more stimulatory exercises, etc. Okay, so you can adjust the training stress, not necessarily through more volume, but through making the sets that you are doing more stressful. Question 14, what would you suggest for people who want to continue bodybuilding while working very long shifts, about 14 to 16 hours a day, and also having a family? Congrats on 90K. Thank you. So 14 to 16 hours, that's a lot. Okay, if you're working 16 hours a day, and there's 24 hours in a day, that's 8 hours for other stuff, and you should probably be getting close to 8 hours of sleep, like 7.5 is a typical recommendation. So, you know, you have 30 minutes for other stuff. It's business time. I would really take a look at, are you working efficiently? What is your job? It's hard to say without knowing your exact situation, but sometimes working less and working more efficiently is a better call. You know, are you working for someone else? Why are they making you work 16 hours a day? Are you in finance? Like, can you maybe cut back? Can you outsource some stuff? Can you, maybe optimize stuff and make it more efficient? But 16-hour days is pretty ridiculous. That doesn't leave very much time for other stuff. Could you maybe fit in some exercising in the middle of the day during a lunch break, maybe some calisthenics? But, if you're truly working 16 hours a day, you're probably not actually working 16 hours a day, right? You probably have some gaps in there where you could actually fit in some exercise. Like, I used to work 9 a.m. to 9 p.m. 6 days a week. In China, it's called Jojo Liu 996. So it's basically working all day, but 9 to 9 is only 12 hours, plus there's a 2-hour lunch break, so that's only working 10 hours. If you're working 16 hours a day, maybe find a new job. I know that sounds overly simplistic, and it's probably more complicated than that, but that's messed up. Question 13, how important is feeling the muscle and the mind-muscle connection for hypertrophy? When is it less relevant or more relevant? So I would say it's more relevant on contraction-focused movements. So something like a spider curl, where it's most challenging at the top, yeah, you might want to try to feel that contraction. On something like an incline dumbbell curl, it's a more stretch-focused movement, and so feeling the muscle might not be as important. You might feel the stretch, but you might not feel the same like cramping sensation. On something like a squat, you might not feel your quads, but your quads are absolutely still working. For higher reps, you're probably going to feel it a little bit more as well. And so I would say, generally speaking, it depends on where the resistance is, the strength curve, and then the exact exercise in question, right? Like, there's no point in flexing your back or trying to flex your hamstrings at the top of a deadlift because you're already done with the movement. There's no resistance, and I would say that's actually probably counterproductive. But in general, I don't put a lot of stock in feeling or mind-muscle connection. I know a lot of enhanced lifters do. I've never found to have a ton of value in that. Just use good technique. I think knowing anatomy and biomechanics a little bit can go a long way, but there's no need to really limit the weight and have a super strict technique in order to feel the movement more. Question 12, how do you personally warm up? So much information out there regarding warm up with just the movement in your training. Perform a GPP circuit for potentiation, winning warm-ups, mobility routine, etc. So I walk to the gym, I start doing the exercise with light weight, and then I just go up in weight until I'm doing the movement with the working sets. I might do some specific exercise for activation or just to get blood in a specific area. So I go into this in my first book, actually, where you can do like face pulls before bench. Before squats, I might do like a Pallof press to get the bracing ability down. I might do the good girl, bad girl machine in order to just to get blood in the adductors, in the abductors, in the hips, get everything, nice and warmed up. You can do like pause reps. You can do just higher rep sets. I would say the stronger you are and the older you are in terms of training age, the more seriously you should take warm-ups. If someone is a beginner and their working weight on bench press is 135, doing a winning warm-up or something like that, probably not as needed. But if you're touching 3 plates, 3.5 plates, 4 plates for your working sets, and you're a little bit older, you have a little bit more mileage on your body, yeah, that's where warming up is definitely more of a thing. What are your thoughts on doing only leg curls for hamstrings? Asking because I have a strained hamstring from RDLs at the moment. Am I going to lose gains? Crying face. Or is there hope? So one of the good things about being injured is that I can relate to some injuries. I've actually had this where, RDLs totally off the table, back extensions off the table, anything that really stretched out that high hamstring, pissed it off. I actually found that sumo was okay because it wasn't really stretching the hamstring as much. There's a little bit more quads in that bottom position. So you might want to try sumo deadlifting if possible. But yeah, you probably won't lose muscle if you're still doing hamstring curls. You can focus on something like a standing hamstring curl where it's more focused in that contracted position and there isn't as much stretch. But yeah, you're not going to lose muscle. Question 10, how do you mentally deal with having lost progress or having slow progress due to taking a lot of time because of injuries or illness? It's something I have struggled with a lot this year as I've had a lot of interruptions due to various injuries and illnesses, and seeing people surpass me in strength in the gym that were previously as strong as me has really taken a blow to my ego. So boom, there's your problem. You can't compare yourself to other people. I mean, just in life, that is a recipe for disaster. Seeing, this person's YouTube channel, grew this quickly, or this person did this, or this person is making this much money. You can use it for inspiration, maybe, but if it puts you in a bad place mentally and leads to poor decision making, not a good situation. So, I deal with it by, you're always going to compare yourself a little bit, right? but trying to keep things in perspective and realizing that shit happens. Right? Like I'm coming back from this QL injury, I'm seeing the guy next to me squat 50% more weight than me, and he's looking over at me like, come on, bro, like, what are you doing? Well, what I'm doing is what I need. Okay, so have the maturity to realize that often things are not perfect, often things are not even close to perfect, and you kind of just have to make the right decisions even if they don't line up with other people's expectations or even your expectations. Question number 9 from Tom Lazarick. Here we are again, man. Congrats as always. Thank you. Apologies if this question has been covered at some point, but what exactly was your biggest inspiration for being an unusually meaty man? Meat emoji, man emoji, bicep emoji. I need to read every emoji like Derek from More Plates, More Dates does. So, it wasn't women, you know. Come on, you know your boy had that on lockdown already. Wasn't confidence, that was already, you know, that was fine. It wasn't like, oh, I feel bad about myself. It wasn't to, like, defeat the school bullies. I mean, I didn't start lifting till I was 25. So a lot of the normal motivations were not there in my case. A lot of it was just I was burnt out on running. I was constantly injured from that. I'd been doing that for a solid decade, and I just wanted to try something new. And I didn't have a goal physique. I didn't, like, have a comic book, you know, image in my mind or see someone else and want to look like them. I just, you know, I wanted to try it, and I wanted to be better than I was. Question number 8, what is your most embarrassing gym story if you have one? I've definitely farted when squatting and deadlifting. You know, all the pressure just, you know, causes that. Pretty sure I haven't shit myself. Yeah, I don't think I smell you. Not that I remember. Maybe I, you know, pushed those memories down just to... No, I don't think I've passed out front squatting. I've passed out doing a muscle snatch. I used to work as an English teacher, and there was like a school gym, so I would go for like a second workout later in the day, and it only had like a certain amount of weight. So I was doing muscle snatches. So muscle snatch is when the bar is on the ground, and instead of a normal snatch or power snatch where you duck under the bar, you have to just like muscle it up. And so you have to be very, very explosive, very, very aggressive to get it up high enough so that you can press it up. And I passed out doing that. That was scary as fuck because I was like just alone at night, me in the dark gym, just, you know, waking up like, what the fuck just happened? So I guess that's not embarrassing because no one else was there. Now it's embarrassing, right? Never puked. I think that if you're puking from a workout in the gym, you're in bad shape. Like that's not normal. That means that something's... If you puke from like a high intensity training workout or like sprints or something in the heat, you know, maybe. But, you know, if you puke from leg press, not a good sign. I've definitely failed a bench press. So you fail and you're just like... And you don't have safety supports because you're an idiot. And, you know, you're just like lying there and you're dying and you're trying to catch the attention of anyone else, you know, help me. You try to like bail the plates to the side or like roll it down without, you know, damaging any places down there. So I would say that's probably the most embarrassing, you know, where you fail a bench and you just have to deal with the consequences. All right, next question. Do you use a squat plug? I don't know what that is. That seems kind of maybe dirty, but no. I mean, maybe I should with the whole farting thing, but no. All right, question 6. What's your experience with lowering intensity and or volume during a cut? Do you reduce both, and if so, by how much? Like, how many sets per muscle would you do during a long cut? So I don't reduce intensity. I assume by intensity you mean effort per set, not the weight on the bar or like the percentage of 1 rep max or the rep range. I don't reduce the effort per set. I think that is a very slippery slope to where you're soon half-assing your training, and that's not a good situation. I do reduce the volume, but it is auto-regulated. So I'll put a graphic on the screen of the training. It seems to be about 25 to 35% less during a cut, but that's probably because I do pretty high volume when I'm bulking. And again, that is auto-regulated. So it's not like I decide, oh, I want to do this many sets, and then I do that many sets, and it's less when I'm cutting. No, it's more just like, oh, I have less energy. I'm chomping at the bit a little bit less, and therefore the volume ends up being less. So I don't track my volume every week. I might add it up at the end of the month just to see where I am, but it's not like I'm chasing a certain number. Question number 5, do you have any specific lifting advice for older lifters? There are some old geezers lurking in your audience who are looking to get in shape for the first time after various life scares. Do you have suggested changes to rep ranges, the pace of progression, lifts to avoid for beginners, injury prevention considerations? Congrats on the rapid takeoff in audience growth. It is good to see that quality content is eventually rewarded. Thank you. So I do have a very short section on this in my latest book, which you might find interesting. Basically, I might suggest more control when you're lifting, maybe slightly less proximity to failure, just an overall more conservative approach, because just anecdotally speaking, injuries seem to take longer to heal when you are a bit older. So I've heard this many, many times anecdotally, where someone would get injured when they're 20 and it would heal in like a week, but now that they're 45, 50, 55, 60 or so, now it takes like a month. Injuries just seem to stick around. So I think being a little bit more risk averse is probably a good idea. And so this means putting a premium on technique. This might mean a slightly slower tempo. This might mean a slightly higher rep range. Like if you're doing a controlled set of 12 or something like that, you're probably going to be fine. Whereas if you're doing like an all-out triple on cheated bent-over rows, I mean, the forces are so much higher, and I would say overall the risk of injury is going to be prohibitively high, and the cost of dealing with that injury is going to be even higher if you are older, and so again, you might want to be a little bit more risk-averse. I wouldn't say that there's any specific lifts that you should avoid, nor do I think that the progression would be any different. Just listen to your body, be patient. Pretty much the same advice as anyone else. Question number 4, I do full body workouts 3 times per week. How important is it to vary the order of my exercises? Should I switch up whether I do chest, back, legs, etc. first? Also, should I keep the same muscle group exercises together, like chest press followed by flies, or overhead press followed by lateral raises or reverse flies? Or is it cool to mix it all up? So I would say you should probably mix it up. If you're doing overhead press, you can do lateral raises far apart from that. And in fact, it might actually be better because you're going to be slightly fresher and have a better performance for that later movement. So I like to actually break it up. Like if I have a full body workout and there are like 2 lower body movements, so like maybe 1 hinge, 1 squat, I actually like to keep those fairly far apart in the workout so that you can freshen up a little bit, because there's going to be a lot of overlapping muscle groups. The adductors, lower back, and the glutes are both going to be working in both of those movements, and so you want to give them a little bit of an opportunity to freshen up and not put them right back to back. And as for varying the order of your exercises, I would say yes, and you should be doing different exercises as well. If you're doing the same full body workout 3 times per week, that is not a good way to go about it. Check my first book for a whole bunch of options. You can have totally different workouts 3 times per week. You can have totally different loading. You can do heavy, medium, light. You can do heavy on lower body one day and light on upper body the other day. And you can really mix and match in order to provide better recovery within the week and avoid overuse injuries, as well as be a little bit more surgical with which areas you are targeting. Question number 3, can you talk about the psychology of program hopping and tips on sticking to a program? That's been the biggest crux of my lifting career. Congrats on 90K, man. Thank you. I remember when you made that rap video about wanting to have it all in the beginning with basically no subs. It's seriously been awesome seeing the growth. Thank you. I'll link that somewhere up above if I remember. So, program hopping, it depends on how bad it is. If it's like a new program every 2 weeks, yeah, that's an issue. You need to view your training as an experiment. That means that you have to let the experiment finish. Okay, so if you're a scientist in the lab and you're brewing up a potion or some shit, and it's a quarter of the way through the experiment, and you're like, fuck it, let's start again, let's do something else, and you're just shiny object syndrome. You're looking around, you're always changing everything. That's not an experiment, okay? You're not actually seeing cause and effect, okay? You need to give it time for the result to actually show or not show, right? Because no progress is still useful information. That being said, if it's been like 10 weeks and you're trying a new program, I would say that's not that big of a deal, okay? So 8, 10, 12 weeks, you should have enough information to see if things are actually progressing in the right direction or not. So if you're doing like 5 programs a year, is that program hopping? Maybe according to some people, but I would say at that point, you've earned the right to try a new program, okay? So it depends on how bad the program hopping is, and part of viewing your training as an experiment is trying new experiments, okay? So you take the information from that first experiment and then you use it to create a second experiment. If you're always doing the same exact experiment, that is quite quickly going to be pretty useless in terms of the information that you are getting, even if your results are good. So sometimes I might have decent results on a program and then try something else to see if it's better or worse. Now, generally, I think this can be bad, right? Because people think, oh, maybe I'll get way better results. But I do think if you are analytical, you're keeping a training log, and you're being observant with how things are going, you can get a lot of value from changing your training plan. All right, question number 2. So I've been thinking about how in the lifting community, and even with some legit naturals on YouTube, it can still be hard to ascertain what is actually naturally obtainable. I'll have a video on that in a few days. That being so, I think novice women have it much harder than us. I actually would agree. For example, my girlfriend recently joined the gym, and I found that she really has no one to look up to. Physique-wise, we may have you, Alex, NH, etc., but I found the lifting community severely lacking in female-oriented content and personalities. So I guess my question is subdivided into, 1, what kind of physiques are naturally obtainable for a woman? So yeah, this is one of those things where the pool of women who are trying to maximize their muscle mass is just smaller than the amount of men who have the same goal. So I think often women underestimate how much muscle they can build naturally, as well as how much strength. I would say for bench press, roughly half to maybe 60% of what a dude could. And then for squat and deadlift, it seems to be a little bit higher, so maybe closer to 2/3 of what a man could do, which is a lot higher than a lot of women think. A lot of women are, I guess their standards and their expectations are a little bit lower, again, because the pool of people who are really pushing things is a little bit lower. Maybe there aren't as many people who are guiding the way. And so, my advice to women, if you really want to, build up your physique, if you like muscle, if you want to build muscle, like there's nothing wrong with that at all. And maybe your expectations could be a little bit higher than the mainstream content that is shown. Number 2, what kind of physiques can they reasonably expect to achieve? So I think it's important to note that women still take steroids. Okay, so it's not like all women are natural. No, if you see a woman and your first thought is like, wow, steroids, there's a good chance that she's probably on steroids. Like if you see just like she's fucking built. I'm not saying if you see like a delt striation or something, she's automatically on steroids. But if a woman is like big, I would say most likely. It's a lot more common than people think. Also keep in mind that Photoshop seems to be extremely common on the female side of the fitness world. Just, it seems like it's almost becoming the norm. Also, I do think that women tend to compare themselves to other women, maybe a little bit more negatively. So it might be a decent strategy not to have any expectations at all and to limit the consumption of social media. And then the third question, who am I subscribed to? I'll be honest, I don't follow very many or any female fitness influencers. I am apparently subscribed to one, Kiana Doherty. She does like more weight loss focused stuff, so that might not actually be what you are looking for. I think her editing is really, really good. I don't find a ton of value in a a lot of channels, like these sort of follow-along workouts or more like booty-focused workouts, like, you know, daddy doesn't need any more cake. And then he says, congrats on almost 100K, and the new audiobook is amazing. Thank you, and I'm glad you are enjoying it. I will link it in a pinned comment down below for anyone else who is interested. Number 1, from the one and only The Fit Lab. Can't believe how fast things are moving for you, bro. Couldn't be happier for you, and very well deserved. My question is, what are your plans for the future of your YouTube channel, as well as any business plans that you may be brewing up? Looking forward to you hitting 100K shortly and wishing you massive continued success. Thank you, dude. So I will probably do a whole video on like the future of the channel around 100K. I'm not that ambitious, to be honest. I don't really have like goals of hitting 1 million subscribers or being like a fitness millionaire or anything like that. I don't think there will be many huge changes. I don't really have any plans on like building my empire or anything like that. I think a lot of people in the fitness industry, they set their sights on monetization a lot to the point where it actually detracts from the content, and the feel of the channel changes. Their views go down, their sub growth slows, and they're like, why? What is going on? Well, they lost that authenticity that they used to have, and usually people won't say when they stop watching. They won't even unsubscribe, they'll just stop watching. And so I don't really have any plans on like accelerating growth or running ads.
Senator, we run ads.
Or, you know, trying to really monetize. Oh, I built this following, now I can, you know, ring them for all they're worth. So I don't think things will change very much. I'm making enough at the moment where it's not too much of a concern. Thank you to everyone who has, you know, bought my books. It's kind of tough to monetize that way. I don't run ads, so that's like one of the only ways that I do make money, so I do appreciate if anyone has gotten that. So yeah, not much in terms of business plans. I view this as a business, but I'm more content focused, and I'm also not as growth focused. I'm more focused on the people who are subscribed to the channel rather than the people who are not subscribed to the channel, if that makes any sense. So yeah, that is all for this video. Definitely grab a copy of the book if it sounds like something you would be interested in. It has a full audiobook. It is 60-something thousand words. A lot of value there. So check it out. I will link it in a pinned comment down below. Thank you so much for the support, and I will see you in the next video. Peace.